What's going on, everybody? C4 here, and welcome back to the 32-team 7-round mock draft series. And this is the final episode as we take a look at the last team that doesn't hold a first-round pick, and that is the New Orleans Saints, a team that fans are salty, rightfully salty, but also get over it at a certain point salty. It was an ugly game. It was an ugly game, and they were able to knock the Eagles out of the playoffs, even though I thought they were incredibly lucky. And if we didn't have the injuries in that game, I could go on and on, but then I'd sound as salty as the Saints fans are. So, hey, you guys still got a hell of a team, and you're going to be very competitive next season, and hopefully the refs don't decide to rob you guys blind. So what I'm going to try to do in this mock draft, you guys don't have a whole lot of draft picks. You really only have one pick that is really of any meaning in the second round. Then you don't have anything till the fifth, and you got a couple picks late in day 3. So it's been a tough mock draft, but because it was like the last team I mocked, there were still some good value pickups to be had, and I'll showcase those to you guys here now. So starting in the second round at pick 62, I'm selecting Lonnie Johnson Jr., cornerback from Kentucky. He's a height, weight, speed corner, 6'3", 205 pounds, ran a 4.39 at his pro day. He has A+ length at that position, has a huge catch radius for a corner, had a big-time Senior Bowl, got on a lot of scouts' radars from then. And New Orleans really needs more consistency at cornerback, opposed Marshon Lattimore. I think when he's healthy, you got P-Rob in the slot. He did some big things for the Eagles. I think he's a nice little lock-up there. But then you just had, inconsistent play from Eli Apple, Ken Crawley, PJ Williams. They just don't have that consistent depth next to Marshon Lattimore. I think a guy like Lonnie Johnson Jr. can develop into that guy. Very similar player to Marshon Lattimore. I think Marshon Lattimore is a little bit better in man coverage. Definitely not the strength of Lonnie Johnson's game. He can be developed, and I think he can emerge, late in the season. They probably let Eli Apple start with that gig, but he's so inconsistent. I wouldn't be surprised, start looking week 6, week 7 to see Lonnie Johnson Jr., if this pick is made, emerge as that starting outside corner alongside Marshon Lattimore. Going into the 5th round, that's gonna be such a boring draft to watch for you guys. The 5th round, at pick 168, I'm selecting Michael Jordan, not the basketball player, not the guy that's actually was trying to pull off a Hitler mustache for a little bit. No, not the basketball player, but the center from Ohio State. The surprise retirement of Max Unger, kind of made them have to overpay for Nick Easton, who's just an average offensive lineman. He's a stopgap type player. Michael Jordan is a versatile offensive lineman. He has great size at 6'6", 310. He can play all over the offensive line, kind of like Braden Smith a little bit. I get some flashes where Braden Smith was built like a tackle, but only ever played guard. And hey, now he's the starting right tackle for the Indianapolis Colts. Not going to say that's the exact same profile here for Michael Jordan, but he has good size and good length that, worst case scenario, you could be that 6th offensive lineman. But I'm more so looking to the future of the interior of that offensive line. He's a guy that can play a lot of places, guard and center. I'm more so projecting him as a center, obviously with the Max Unger retirement. He was a 3-year starter at Ohio State. I think he has that upside to be the 2020 starting center here for the New Orleans Saints if he gets proper development, and then they can move Nick Easton's contract off the books. Moving into the 6th round, where they have 2 6th-round picks. First up at 177, I was selecting DAMARKUS Lodge, wide receiver from Ole Miss, a NWO member. If you don't know what that means, nasty wideouts. That's what they called DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, and DAMARKUS Lodge at Ole Miss. He's a great deep threat. He's not so much straight line speed, but kind of like David Sills, the wide receiver out of West Virginia, in terms of they're not a burner. They have all right speed, but it's more so their body placement, their hand fighting, their jump ball ability, their contested catch ability is what makes them so dangerous on the deep threat. And I think that's what you get in DAMARKUS Lodge. And most scouts like to compliment him as one of the better blocking wide receivers in this year's draft class, which is always a added bonus. He had an okay combine and a 4.55, so that's he's got to go probably day 3 at some point. Maybe really good value presents itself here in the 6th round if he's still on the board. But looking at the depth chart here for the New Orleans Saints, I think he can emerge as wide receiver 5 or 6. And I kind of have like some Keith Kirkwood vibes. I mean, last year my exact words were Keith Kirkwood could be the next Robbie Anderson, a Temple wide receiver that ran a really fast time at his pro day. And look, he ended up being like a very nice spot player for the Saints last year because of injury. I think a guy like DAMARKUS Lodge could, I'm not going to project injury, but could emerge like midpoint of the year, a little bit later in the year. It's like, wow, this guy here is actually a player that can be counted on. Look at his chemistry with Drew Brees. I can't believe it. And throw that in with Michael Thomas and Traquan Smith. That is a healthy wide receiver core. So I think there is some development that could be had with DAMARKUS Lodge, but in terms of day 3 picks at wide receiver, lots of value being had here for the New Orleans Saints. Going to the second 6th-round pick at 202, Island selecting Malik CARNEY, defensive end from North Carolina. A productive defensive end that is very good against the run. Still needs to develop a better set of pass rushing moves, but he has a role in 2 years at North Carolina. 120 tackles, 24 tackles for loss, 11.5 sacks, 7 forced fumbles. So I'm not gonna lie, I watched this a little bit tape. You see some flashes of like Brandon Graham to an extent. He had an okay combine, running 4.73 40, 25 reps on the bench press, so it's, you know, just slightly above average in that regard. I think he could come in and challenge for defensive end 4 and could see some reps potentially as a defensive end rotation with Trey Hendrickson for depth behind Jordan Cameron and Marcus Davenport. But beyond that, there's not much. They have 3 clear defensive ends on this roster, and I think there is a room for a 4th to land. I think getting the 6th round, a guy like Malik CARNEY, again, a value pick, slipped. Pretty much everyone in this Saints mock draft slipped from where a lot of people have as their consensus average draft position. Nothing too crazy, but maybe a round or two. Like CARNEY was going like 4th, 5th round, still here in the 6th. But again, you know, some teams won't value a guy that is better at stopping the run than he is the pass, and they could be available very well here for the Saints in the 6th round at pick 202. But 4th defensive end, adding some depth to that defensive line is probably a good strategy here for the Saints in this draft. Then finishing up in the 7th round, where they have 2 7th-round picks. First up at 231, Island selecting Mike Weber, running back from Ohio State. He was a rotational running back at Ohio State. Actually, he was a starter, and then J.K. Dobbins came out of nowhere, and then, you know, they had a lot of running backs at Ohio State. He had a really good combine, though, 4.47 at 5'11", 210 pounds, so that's prototypical size with above average speed, like good speed. No real weakness to his game. He's one of those like jack of all trades, master of none. He can catch fine, he can run between the tackles, he has that, obviously, that speed, that 4.47 speed to take it to the house, but he doesn't do anything really consistently, which is why I think, you know, it has to be some sort of development there. But I think for New Orleans, they're gonna be looking for a long-term partner with Alvin Kamara. They're gonna like that rotation. Unfortunately, we're unable to retain Mark Ingram in free agency. They did bring in Latavius Murray to kind of be a, you know, stopgap type player. But I think you're going to be looking more for a long-term guy, and that could be Mike Weber. He has averaged 6 yards per carry throughout his career at Ohio State, and he has lots of tread left on his tires. You know, a common thing is fans of teams want them to draft the uber-productive running backs. The running backs are 3-4-year starters, multiple 1,000-yard seasons. Those guys have a lot of wear and tear, and if they haven't had an injury, I mean, you know, they're more likely to get one than they are someone that has like 1,000 less touches, just for an example. So I think someone like Mike Weber is going to be a nice value pick here in the 7th round and will emerge as running back 3 come opening day for the New Orleans Saints if they decide to make this pick. And then finishing up the draft in the 7th round, 244, I am selecting EGBULE, linebacker from Houston. High IQ, versatile linebacker, and a great value pick. Scouts are all over the board when it comes to his draft stock. I've seen him go as high as the 3rd round. I've consistently seen him more so in the 5th, 6th. So still, either way, presenting very nice value here at the tail end of the NFL draft, pick 244. He had a pretty solid combine. 4.65, put up 20 reps on the bench press. And New Orleans needs linebacking depth. And EGBULE, I think, could emerge as A.J. Klein's potential successor. He's an outside linebacker. And looking at their outside linebackers, you have Demario Davis. You have Klein as their assumed starters, with Anzalone as the middle linebacker. Then you got Craig Robertson, Vince Beagle, who I actually kind of liked a couple years ago. His tape a couple years ago at Wisconsin. I think he was banged up his year that he actually got drafted, went to the draft. But, a guy like EGBULE does a lot of things for an outside. He can rush the passer. Not so much coverage is his strength. That's why I think most people think he's going to be an outside linebacker and not inside. But really nice special teams ability in the 7th round here. He can tackle well. And like I said, high IQ, guy that puts himself in the right positions with a little bit of athletic ability. Usually you don't get that combination. Usually it's either the athletes or it's the guy that have the IQ that can get and put themselves in right positions to make up for their lack of athletic ability. With EGBULE, you get a bit of both. And I think that is a very nice value pickup in the 7th round. Word of the day for the Saints mock draft is value pickups. I know. But there you go, guys. That is the 7th round mock draft here for the New Orleans Saints. Therefore, wrapping up this series. I hope you guys have learned a thing or two. I hope I did justice for your favorite teams throughout this series. And, we'll be back right back here and doing it all again next year. I will say I am pretty sure that I will be streaming on my Twitch at some point during the 1st round. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to handle the 1st round of the draft. I know I'm probably Got to make reaction videos for the first 5 picks, and then obviously the Eagle selection at pick 25. But I think outside of that, we will just be hanging out on the Twitch, giving live reactions and talking about the draft. And if all goes well, I might be able to do that for day 2 and some of day 3 of the draft. So the content does not stop, as we are very close to the beginning of the 2019 NFL Draft. But I thank you guys for staying tuned throughout this series. And if it's your first time stopping by, don't be afraid to hit that subscribe button, smash the like button if you enjoyed. And until next time, it's C4 saying peace out.